Okay, everybody, I now have a sign at the bottom of my screen that says that we're live. And I just wonder if people are able to see this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause for just a little minute, and I'm going to ask the group to comment if they can see what's going on. Also, the people who got in touch with me earlier in the week about wanting to come online and participate, I've sent the invites out to you, and so far, actually, we've only got one person who's come and joined in. Luke, who's sitting down at the bottom of the screen, you can see. If the rest of you still want to come in and be involved, then please do. And we'll look forward to seeing you soon. But I'm just going to pause for a minute because I would really like it if people who are watching the live feed can just let me know very quickly if you are seeing what's going on. Great. Okay, guys, we're starting to get the feed coming in now saying that people can hear us. Thank you, Jonathan, Valerio, Maddie, all you guys who have now said this. So what we're going to do is we're going to get cracking. If there are people who have been invited to join, who've asked to join and have that invite, then please accept, and then you'll be able to come and join in. We did a Google Hangout the other day, and it was somewhat successful. We were able to transmit some information that I think was useful, but what we noticed was that we weren't getting the immediate feedback that we were hoping for. So I do have Luke in the bottom of the screen here, and he will be there, and he can kind of act as the guinea pig for everyone. As I say, if the rest of you want to join in, please just let me know. Or if you've already had your invite, please accept. Now, what I'm going to do is keep going. I'm going to deliver as much of the information as I can. What I'll do is I'll pause periodically to come over to the event page and look at the comments that you're posting there, just to give everyone the opportunity to be involved. So what I should say for the benefit of YouTube, because this is also being recorded and will be posted once the broadcast finishes, is that today is the 31st of July 2014. It's 10:10 UK time, and this is a live Google Hangout. So when you're watching this back, if you are unsure of what's going on or if there's any long pauses, then this is because it's live and we're letting the community get involved as much as possible. So I've got a list of things that I have noted from the Facebook pages and the Facebook group and Twitter, and from the forums that people say they want to have a bit more information on. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to deliver that, and if you've got means to get in touch with me as we're going through this, please just let me know, and let me know if there's anything else that you want to cover while we're going through it. So the things that I want to do, having already discussed key signatures and intervals in the last Hangout, I would very much like to go on and talk about rhythm and meter, give you some examples, and then go on to any other questions that you might have at the end. And hopefully we'll broadcast for about 45 minutes or so and finish just before 11 AM UK time. I am looking back over at the forum quickly again, and I'm seeing that people can see and hear. Thierry, for instance, has just let us know. Thank you very much. Ralitza has also said, so that is fantastic. Thank you very much. One last reminder that if you do want to get involved and come onto the live broadcast, get in touch or accept the invitation that you've already been sent this morning. Okay, thank you very much. So let's get on with some interval stuff. Some rhythm stuff. People have been saying on the forums that there was a lot of information in this week's lectures, and yeah, absolutely, there was. And the rhythm and the metrical side of things is so linked to maths and counting that it really is one of these things that you just need to kind of learn the information and then try to kind of get to grips with it practically. So what I'm going to try and do just now is to give you some tips for getting to grips with it more practically. So really, really simply to start with, what I'm going to say is that when you look at a piece of music and you see those two numbers stacked on top of each other, right over there at the left-hand side at the start of the line, next to the clef, or indeed at any point at which the time changes within the piece. These two vertical numbers stacked vertically on top of each other are called the time signature. And what that means is that it's telling you how many beats are in the bar and what type of beats these are. And that'll become more clear as we go along. So the upper number tells us how many beats there are in the bar, and the lower number tells us what type of beats they are. So if we've got something like 4/4, so it's a 4 on top of another 4 as our time signature, we know that that means that there are 4 beats in the bar, as is indicated by the upper number, and the lower number tells us that these are crotchets or quarter notes. Now, crotchets is the UK terminology, quarter notes is more a kind of US thing, but when we're talking about time signatures, actually, to call them quarter notes kind of makes sense in some ways, because actually what that means is our denominator is a 4 quarter. That's what we expect, certainly when we're thinking about things mathematically as well. Similarly, if it was 6/8, that means there's 6 in the bar, and that the lower note is the lower number is telling us that these are 8th notes, quavers, to use the kind of UK version of the names. So a little disclaimer that I should say as I go along is that I obviously learned in the UK, teach in the UK, and I'm really accustomed to the UK terminology, and I do have to think a wee bit about the American terminology as I go through. So I will try and speak bilingually, for want of a better word, as much as possible as we go through it. But obviously, whatever one you prefer, you stick with that and you use that. There's no right or wrong way to think about it. Just do what works for you, because both of these are perfectly acceptable sets of terminology. So that's time signatures. So let's go over and have a look at some time signatures. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a little second here to share my screen with you, and you should be able to see what I'm seeing. I will just be 1 second while I set this up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you an application called Sibelius on my screen. Now, Sibelius is just a kind of note input program of music. You can write scores with it, and it does some playback and things like that. But it's a way to create scores And I'm going to show you that happening. The reason I'm going to show you it happening is I think if you see the process of a bar filling up with the appropriate notes progressively, you might be able to get a better idea of what is actually going on. So let me come back over to the Hangout here, and I'm going to go on to screen share. I'm going to jump down to the Sibelius window, and hopefully you can now see me working in Sibelius on your screen. Luke, can I just ask you for a wee verification of that?
Yeah, I can see.
Fantastic.
Sibelius, yep.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, and hopefully the forum can too. Sorry, on the event page, if you get the opportunity to let me know on the event page with a little comment, that would be really handy. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to tell it that I want a time signature. And for this time signature, I'm going to start with this 4/4. Now, as we've discussed in the forums and on the lecture notes, 4/4 is also sometimes written as the letter C. In fact, let me just show you that. C. This. Common time. Now, 4/4 is so common that this is just an alternative symbol. So if you see a C at the start, that means 4 beats per bar. 4 crotchet beats per bar. It means exactly the same thing as 4/4. So I'm going to jump back over, I'm going to put it back in as 4/4, and in my handy little keypad here, I'm going to select crotchets or quarter notes. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fill up the bar with quarter notes. Now, Sibelius obviously knows the rules of time signatures very well, so it won't let me add any more to a bar than I can. So I've got 1 quarter note in here, 1 crotchet. You can see it's highlighted blue at the moment. Directly next to that, we've got a crotchet rest, a quarter note rest, and then we've got a minim rest, a 2-beat rest, which is a half note rest. So the first one, and then 3 empty beats. So I'm just going to keep putting beats in there. Now I've got 4 crotchets in this bar. So numerically, mathematically, and in terms of the duration, that bar is now full. Okay, so those 4 beats are in there. If I try to add another one, it won't let me. It's just stacking other notes and chords. It won't let me add anything else to that bar because the 4 crotchet beats, the 4 quarter notes that are allowed to be in that bar are there. Now, I read a comment on the forum. Someone said, so if you're in 4/4, or if the piece of music's in 4/4, does that mean that you have to have 4 crotchets in the bar? And I think what that comment meant was, does it have to rhythmically appear as this bar does? Well, no, absolutely not. That would be very, very boring music, because if we were to play that piece of music, it would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Clearly, that's not the case. We don't have to just have 4 crotchet beats per bar. That'll be really obvious to some people, but I can fully appreciate that for other people, and especially people who are complete beginners that are just coming to this material, actually, if we use phrases like, this bar has 4 crotchet beats in it, then yeah, why wouldn't you think that you would just have 4 crotchet beats? I just want to say now, obviously, that that isn't the case, and we can divide it up in any way we want. If we wanted to, we could have 2 quavers crotchet beat, and then 4 semiquavers. Then we could have 8 demi-semiquavers, for instance. We can break this up as much as we want, and of course we don't even need to have notes on every part. We can have some rests in there as well. But as long as metrically it adds up to the equivalent of 4 crotchet beats, which can be represented by this semi-breve or this semi-breve or whole note, then the bar is functioning in the way it should when we're talking about the rhythm and the mathematical side of things. One thing that I do want to say, because there's been a little bit of confusion, and this is a kind of real point of tension between the UK and the US systems of describing these notes, and this is something that I've certainly had heated discussions with people about, and I listen to students sometimes have heated discussions about it too. we've got kind of two contradictory bits of information going on in the way that these two things are described. So, to me, I call this thing here a semi-brief. This note that we can see on screen here. I call this a semi-brief, and people who kind of know the UK version of this terminology call this a semi-brief. But other people who are dealing with this in, say, American terminology, and by the way, I don't want to suggest that it's only people in the US and the UK that talk about these things, but these seem to be the kind of two hubs, the two kind of centers of these sets of terminology. So I don't want to offend anyone by being exclusive to these two territories. But anyway, people who deal with the UK version call this a semi-brief. People who deal with the US version call this a whole note. Now, if you think about that, whole note, yeah, okay, fine. So it's a whole note. It's a whole note in a bar of 4/4. Actually, if we're in a bar of 3/4, it's a whole note plus a little bit. If we're in a bar of 5/4, it's not quite the whole bar. Yeah, so clearly we're not talking about it being a whole bar's worth necessarily. And this is a little idiosyncrasy of the language that we need to think about. Semi-brief, obviously the prefix semi means half brief, and that's exactly what it is. It's half a brief, or breve as some people describe it, pronounce it. This is a more kind of out-of-date note in some ways, which is double a semi-brief. It lasts for 8 notes. So the prefix semi here does mean that it comes from a different note originally. We don't need to go into it too much, but don't be confused by the prefix semi on one side of things and then the term whole on the other side of things. Actually, these are still both 4-beat notes, and that's the thing that we really need to think about, is the amount of time it lasts for in terms of beats. It's a 4-beat note. Okay, so let's go on and look at another time signature. That's 4/4, and what we see actually when we have our beats, before I move on, is that when I break up these beats, what I get is quavers. Each beat, yeah, this was a beat, and each of these beats divides into 2, and we get 2 quavers per crotchet. And this makes sense because we call crotchets quarter notes and we call quaver eighth notes. So if we half a quarter, we get an eighth. So 2/8 occupy the same amount of space as a quarter, as a crotchet. That's fine. That makes perfect sense. And actually, this is what we refer to as simple time. So when our beats divide into 2, we're talking about simple time. As you would have no doubt picked up from the lectures and the supplementary material, that's not all we have to deal with. I want to have a look at this. In fact, you know what I want to do? I want to look at this one, 12/8. Okay, so if we look at 12/8, and I just take my crotchets and I put them in. Oh, look, actually, 4 crotchets doesn't take up the whole bar. That's fine, that's to be expected. But what we have in 12/8 actually is space for 4 dotted crotchets per bar. Now, as we know, the dot adds 50% to the value. So when we look at a crotchet, we know it's worth 1 beat. When we look at a dotted crotchet, as is the case in this bar, we know it's worth 1.5 beats. Now, interestingly, when we look at this, what we see is the fact that we've got an 8 on the bottom, and that 8 on the bottom is suggesting that the beats are made up of quavers. And this is a compound time. And when we take each one of these beats, these main pulses in the bar, what we're seeing is that we can actually divide them into not 1, not 2, but 3 quavers. And this is really what we mean by compound time. When we can take any one of our main beats in the bar, what we would feel as the kind of main pulse in the bar, that divides not into 2 as it does in simple time, but into 3. So some people have been saying, okay, well, that's fine, and I kind of understand that intellectually, but I want to be able to hear it. Okay, so let me, for you just now, I'm going to try the old 2-handed routine. It's like It's like patting your stomach and rubbing your head at the same time, that old chestnut. What I'm going to do is I'm going to beat out for you. I'm going to bang the table that the computer's sitting on, so hopefully you'll hear it. I'm going to beat out for you the pulse in 4/4, okay? So this is our 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play notes on each of these pulses. And then halfway through, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start changing these notes, not to crotchet beats, but to quaver beats in 4/4. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I hope you all were able to hear that. Luke, as our live guinea pig, are you able to let us know if you heard the beats and the notes being played on top?
Yes, I could hear everything.
Wonderful, thank you. And you got the idea that when we were playing crotchet beats, we played the pulse one crotchet beat per beat of the bar, and then we changed that into quaver beats so that they were happening twice as regularly, and we were getting 2 quavers per crotchet beat. Could you hear that okay?
Yes, yeah, I could. Yep.
Excellent. Thank you very much, and thank you so much for being our group guinea pig. It's much appreciated. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing in 12/8 now, okay? So the way we actually think about 12/8 is that we've got 4 kind of main pulses per bar as well, actually. So what I'll do this time is I'll play, I'll tap the beat out again, and I'll play the piano, and I'll put a note on every beat. And then what I'll do is I'll break up the beats into its quavers. Now, when I start playing it on every beat, it'll sound almost indistinguishable. It's when you hear the breakup of the quavers underneath that you start to realise that there's 3 per beat, and that this is, as a result, is a compound time. Don't worry, we're going to go on and talk about this more, but I just want to give you some oral examples, because certainly that was a useful way for me when I was learning about this, was to actually just kind of hear the differences. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, look, can I just get a wee confirmation that we heard that again?
Yeah, yep.
Wonderful,
yeah, that was good.
thank
Yeah,
you.
you could hear the pulses in threes. Yeah.
Fantastic. That's exactly what I was hoping to get across. So what
Yeah.
I want to say then is that if we've got our pulse in 12/8, which is a compound time, the reason I'm using 12/8, as you'll no doubt hear, is because it's a compound equivalent of 4/4. There's still 4 beats in the bar, 4 kind of main beats, but each of these beats is broken down into 3. So if you look at this, what we've got here is 12/8. I'm asking you to look at the Sibelius at the moment, everyone, just so you know what I'm referring to. We've got 12/8, and we've got our 4 dotted crotchets in the bar. If we break that up into quavers, what we get is 4 groups of 3 quavers, because each beat. Okay. Now, what I want to do is look at this in. Where are we here? Sorry, excuse me a second. What I want to do now is look at this in 4/4. Right next to it, so you can see the difference. Now, if we've got 1 beat, 1 note per beat, we've got 4 crotchets, 4 quarter notes. And actually what happens is when we break these up, we get 8 quavers, 8 eighth notes. See, I'm even stumbling on thinking about the American terminology sometimes, and that's purely as a result of the way I've been brought up and learned to read music. We're not enforcing the British terminology on anyone. We just like to be able to try and appeal to a wide audience. You choose the one that works for you and run with it. It's absolutely fine to go with whichever one you want to do. We're not suggesting that one's superior or inferior in any way at all. So if we put these on top of each other, we can actually see where the beats are now. So we're seeing that there's 12 eighth notes, 12 quavers get crammed into the space that 4 would occupy if we were in 4/4. Now the reason I phrased it that way just now is that if we wanted to go on and try and squeeze 12 quavers, 12 eighth notes into this bar, we can't do it, obviously. The way that we do it to make it sound exactly the same is if we use what's called a triplet. And what that means is 3 things squeezing into the space that 2 would normally occupy. So I'm going to do the example again where you're going to hear the difference, and what I'm going to do this time is play the 12/8 version first of all. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Okay, so what I did was I just counted the beats over the top of that so you could hear what was going on. I'll do it without that counting this time so you can hear it more clearly. So we've got 4 main kind of beats in the bar, and each of those beats is broken down into 3. 4 times 3 obviously is 12. Now if we look at the lower of the 2 lines, the one that's highlighted blue for you at the moment, what we've got here is, again, 1, 2, 3, 4. Fine, but in the second half, we're not breaking it up into quavers as we did by dividing each beat into 2, which would sound like this. What we're saying is we're squeezing 3 things into the space that those 2 quavers would occupy. I'm referring specifically to this bar now, so we've got... And that's the effect of triplets. What it does is it squeezes 3 things into the space that 2 would occupy. So hopefully that's useful. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop back to the camera, if I know how to do that. Ah, there we go. Fantastic. So that hopefully was a useful demonstration of how the time signatures work, how the bars fill up when you've got those time signatures in places, and then hopefully so you could hear just a little bit of what these things actually mean. I'm just going to give you one more quick example talking about what these things actually mean, and I'm going to share my screen with you again. And this time I'm going to jump back to Sibelius. Excuse me while I fiddle about with this. I just prepared this little thing in advance because I thought it might be useful. I was sitting thinking this morning before I did this little hangout, what's a good way to really get this impression of meter across? And one way is to hear it, but I think we need to remember that although we're not 100% certain, we can be fairly sure that the term meter has been derived from poetry, and that's talking about stresses, and that's talking about kind of accents and where things fall within a kind of metric and rhythmic structure. Look, can I just ask you again, please, to tell me if you can see Sibelius on the screen now?
I can, yes.
Wonderful, thank you very much. So what I've got here on the screen is just a way that I thought might be useful when I was trying to think of a good way to explain this morning. One of the questions, I think it was by someone called Tom, in the question and answer kind of opportunity that happened ahead of this hangout that I read through to try and get some ideas of what you might want me to speak about, was he said something like, so what's the difference then? 6/8 and 3/4. There's still 6 quavers in each bar. I'm very much paraphrasing here, so Tom, if you're watching, do apologise if I've got the wrong end of the stick here, but I think this is what you were getting at, and I think this might be a kind of useful way to look at it. Now, if we're in 3/4, using the logic that we've already talked about this morning and what you will hopefully have from the lectures, what we mean by that is that we've got 3 beats per bar. The upper number tells us that is a 3. The lower number tells us that these beats are quarter beats, quarter notes, crotchets. So what that means is we've got space for 3 crotchets per bar. As I've already said, it doesn't mean we have to just have 3 crotchets in that bar. Of course, that would be a really boring musical world if that was the case. But it means we do have space for 3 crotchets, and we can divide that up as far as we like. So, what I thought might be useful is if we put the 2 things side by side. If that's what 3/4 means, 6/8 means that there are 6 quaver beats per bar. 6/8 notes per bar, space for 6/8 notes per bar. Of course, it doesn't have to be the case. Again, we can just divide that up as much as we want, but hopefully it's useful to think about it in that way. Let's see them both side by side. We'll see them right on top of each other, actually. And what I've done is I've just kind of tried to put some words in there as well. I don't know if you're like me, but I kind of hear rhythms all over the place, whether it's on a train or if I'm standing photocopying something. That's a big one for me, is I hear, you know, some sort of kind of, some sort of rhythmic thing in kind of every little thing that I do. Maybe this is me going too much into my psychology here, but maybe it's a musician's issue. But I certainly do that, and I think when you hear people speaking, and certainly when you hear people speaking who are used to public speaking and used to perhaps acting or performance, you do get a kind of metric quality in their speech a lot of the time. So I just thought of two little phrases that we could use. So if we're in 3/4, our beats are going to go 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and so on, and that would just repeat until we had a change of time signature, or indeed until the music ended. So that's our underlying beat, that's our pulse, if you like. So over the top of that, what I think might be a good illustration of how we get a simple time would be if we break each beat up into 2, as we did in the previous example. So simply that would be, I'll just play a note so you hear a difference. That'd be 1, 2, 3. Okay, and what I said is, if we say the phrase, I don't know where that place is, of course I'm exaggerating the rhythmic stress here, but if you say, I don't know where that place is, it feels as if we're getting 2 things per beat, two words per beat. So I don't know where that place is. That's us dividing our beats up into 2. If we look at the compound version, actually what we know is that beats are divided up into 3. So what we can actually say of 6/8 is that there's only 2 main beats per bar. It is a compound time, and it's duple for that reason, because we only get 2 as opposed to 3/4, which is obviously a simple triple, because we do get 3 beats which are divided simply into 2. Just to reiterate that, simply divided into 2, compound divided into 3. So if we're dividing it into 3, a little bit of detective work will show us that we've got 2 groups of 3 here. So that must have been derived from 2 main beats. So as I say, the simple version is, I don't know where that place is. The compound version, we could think of it being, the beat is 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that gives us this kind of lilting, rocking motion that we get. And I'm an absolute sucker for music in 6/8, both to listen to it, and actually a lot of my friends and bandmates will often kind of say, oh, Zach's got a new tune, let's see if it's in 6/8, which is kind of, maybe it's the Scottish folk background in me. I don't know, but it's interesting nonetheless. So we get that lilting sort of rocking feel, and if we put that over the 2 beats of 6/8, we get 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so that's our 3 beats on top of the 2 main beat sort of pulses, if you like. So if we're going to look at the words here, let's look at the lower. We get 1, 2. Call me if you get the chance. Call me if you get the chance. So we've got call me if you get the is the first bar, that's the first 2 beats, and then chance following on the first beat of the second bar there. So let's just go over that again. I'm going to say we've got our simple beats are divided into 2 in a bar of 3/4, which contains the same number of quavers as a bar of 6/8 does. But because of the way it's structured and because of the underlying metric structure behind it, we actually divide these beats into 2. So we've got 3 things being divided into 2, as opposed to 2 things being divided into 3 and 6/8. And this is where the different feels come from. Now, it's a perfectly legitimate question to say, but it's got the same amount of quavers. How can it be different? And this is the reason it's different, because of the way that we conceive of, engage with, and structure the underlying beats that go with it. So I'm just going to speak the 2 through side by side again, and hopefully that'll be a kind of useful illustration of what we mean by these different things. You'll notice I'm not going too far into the whole simple duple, quadruple, triple, compound, all these kind of words, because what I really don't want to do is step over the line and start talking about things that are going to be either too beneficial on the test, or that might confuse people who are wanting to engage with the test at a more basic level, perhaps. Excuse me. So in our simple time, our 3-4, we get 1, 2, 3. I don't know where that place is. And that doesn't feel awkward. That doesn't feel as if we're trying to fit too much into the bar. The kind of way that this falls under our tongue, and the way that we speak it out, seems to fit nicely. As opposed to the 6/8 one, where we've got 2 strong beats divided into 3. So we're getting, call me if you get the chance. Call me if you get the chance. So it definitely feels like it's a kind of lilting, rocking motion on top of 2 main prominent pulses, as opposed to the even simple division into 2 of 3 beats. I don't know where that place is. Okay, at the risk of over-labouring the point here, I'm going to give that a rest. But Luke, I wonder, can I just ask you, was that useful at that point? Do you think that was a helpful illustration, or would you like to ask any questions about the way that works?
No, I think I followed that quite well, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Leave it. Yeah, that's okay.
Thank you. What I would say is this book, which you'll probably be seeing back to front here, I'm not sure if you're seeing the right thing, the A-B Guide to Music Theory. You can see this is actually my copy from when I was learning, when I was a kid and a teenager. And it is absolutely dog-eared and wrecked, and only cost £2 at the time. That shows you 10, 15 years ago now. But that's a really, really useful book, and it's got such simple, easy to follow, well-structured explanations of meter, time signatures, how you count them, how you go about beaming things. And I would really recommend that you check that out if you get the opportunity. Also, if you were to go to musictheory.net, and if you go to the the lesson on simple and compound meter, for anyone who wants to follow up on this, there's a beautiful description and a nice animation that kind of flows through and tells you the difference. So that would be my suggested kind of reading and other exercises to follow up on.
Can I just say I actually went there and studied that, so that's why your lecture at the moment made a lot more sense. Simply because I went to that and studied that. It did. It makes a lot of sense. That's a very good site to go to. That really is.
Yeah, I would echo that, Luke, definitely. That is a wonderful site, and I've been using it for years with students from 4 and 5 years old up to 90 odd years old. You know, it's wonderful, and it's just really well structured and well laid out, and hopefully it'll be a nice companion to some of the things that we're kind of talking about. So thank you, Luke.
So that's okay. If anyone's having any trouble, I would suggest that's the first place to go to. It's really simply laid out and quickly and easily explained. And I got it, and if I can get it, anyone can get it. Trust me. I had so much trouble adding those things up the other day that you wouldn't believe the problems I had with it. You know, I just went back and back. It took me 4 goes to get the exam, the quizzes. But I eventually got it. But I wasn't sure I got it because I just got lucky and ticked the right box, as opposed to understanding what was going on. But I did learn what you were just teaching then from that site. So
excellent. I'm very, very glad of that. And that's a nice point to follow up on, actually, that perseverance and, trying the test a few times is definitely a good way to go. And also, you get a week's worth of material on Monday. What I see in the forums by, say, 9 o'clock Monday morning UK time is lots of people saying, "Oh no, I took the test and I only got X." Well, what I would say is, it's a week's worth of material. Follow it through, work it through, watch it as many times as you want. Get in touch with us in the forums, and we'll try and have some more hangouts as well. Perseverance and definitely working on it, and especially when it's more kind of mathematical counting things that aren't necessarily musically intuitive. It's definitely a good way to go. I'm just going to write a quick post to the site here, just to ask if people are following. If you get a chance to reply to me, that would be wonderful, just so I can keep an eye on what people are up to on the event page as well. But hopefully this is working a bit better than the other day, and the YouTube video makes sense more as a result. Okay, so the next thing that I want to go on to do is to look at some examples of exactly what Luke was just mentioned there. And this is this idea of counting things up and kind of looking at a piece of music that might look quite complex and thinking, what is going on here? What is the underlying pulse? What is the meter? How am I going to describe this? And I think a really good example for doing this is to look at just pieces of music that have got the key signatures omitted, and just have a go counting that up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flash something up on the screen here. Hopefully it'll work for us. And what I'm also going to do is I'm going to chuck it up on site if I can, actually. This is us getting quite fancy with our technology here, but hopefully this will work. Excuse me for the pause in the meantime. Okay, I've just added that up, and in the process of adding that up, I've also noticed that Raphael and Nilufar and Jonathan have all said that they're following, so thank you very much for that, guys. Your feedback's much appreciated. What I've done is I've posted this up on the event site. Paul Chaddock has as well. I note from Paul that this poor guy, I think, is up at something like 3 o'clock in the morning. So if you are watching in whichever far-flung corner of the globe you're in, Paul, I think it's Canada, thank you very much for coming along. I hope it's useful for you. What I'm going to do is try and share my screen here again. Fantastic, although it's back to front. I think it should sort itself out. Yes, okay, look, can you see that?
Yeah, that's fine, yep.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Now, what we I've got here, as you can see from the instructions, is a piece of music, and it's an extract which begins on the first beat of the bar. That's really important. We're not being tricky here and asking you to count incomplete bars. Begins on the first beat of the bar, and it requires different time signatures. And actually, you can see at the start of each bar, there's some horizontal space left for the time signatures. One at the start of each bar. Write in the 3 appropriate time signatures. Now, anyone who's kind of studied via the Associated Board of the Royal Schools of Music, that's to say the ABRSM, kind of approach to music theory will be really, really familiar with this question, and I'll probably be having sort of post-traumatic stress flashbacks right now, because it's one of these questions that people really, really don't like a lot of the time. It's actually, in my opinion, really good that a really good idea to kind of look at these type of questions, because it really helps you understand not some abstract mathematical nonsense that gives you some magic number for the bar. No, it's far more important than that. If you're looking at this as someone who wants to be able to approach it and read it and play it, then what we're getting is a way to actually get inside the music and understand where the different points of stress are. So what I'm going to do is say that it's been up on the event page for a few minutes now. Luke's had it in front of him, and anyone who's watching on the YouTube will be able to see this in front of them as well. What I want to do is start talking about how we would actually go through kind of doing this and working out what it is, because I can fully appreciate that without a time signature, which we often take for granted, this might just look like a horrible kind of pile of notes and kind of abstract symbols that we've got to try and work out. So let me try and...
That's what it looks like for me.
Yeah, that's what... Well, do you know, I think that looks that way to a lot of people, and I fully sympathise, because I remember hating this stuff. And what I'd really like to say, actually, and this is maybe me admitting far too much here, but when I was a teenager learning music theory, and even throughout my music degrees, the rhythm side of stuff was the things that I cared about least. I'm a saxophone player, and I wanted to play jazz, and I wanted to know about cool hip harmony, and I wanted to know about interesting scales to play over funny chords and stuff like that. It doesn't do anyone any favours to avoid this stuff, so I can kind of say, almost sounding like an old man with the benefit of hindsight here, that it's so important to really get inside this stuff and try not to think about it as abstract, but as a beautiful way to represent how you can engage rhythmically and kind of metrically with the music. So I'm going to talk you through it now. What would I do? How would I approach it? Well, to be totally honest with you, I don't know if there's an approved way that we're supposed to tell you how to do this, or if there's a kind of magic book anywhere that tells you how to do it. But what I would do is look for simplicity first. Maybe that's me being lazy, but I would look for the simplest and most easy thing first. And to me, the simplest and most easy bar here is the very last one. What I'm seeing in that last bar is a crotchet, quarter note G, which is tied over to a quaver G, or an eighth note G, which then rises to an A, which is also a quaver. So I'm seeing a crotchet and two quavers. If we break that down to its lowest common denominator, what you're seeing essentially is 4 eighth notes. But really what we can see is that this is 2 beats. Now, yes, it's 4 eighth notes, so we could call it 4/8. But no, that's not really very sensible, because what we're saying is we're saying a crotchet and then 2 eighth notes tied together to form a beat. So what we're getting is a crotchet and a beat. So what we're seeing here is a bar of 2/4. Luke, would you agree with that? You follow that? That makes sense to you?
Yeah. I was trying to guess what it was, and I was thinking to myself 2/4.
You were thinking 2/4? Fantastic. Well, that's exactly right. Let's look at the bar just before that, which to me is the next most simple bar. Okay, so I'm going to just rush through it a wee bit more, just for the benefit of everyone who's listening. Richard Worth has just joined us. Shout hello, Richard. Hello. And he's going to join in a wee bit in a minute, if we get some chance. But what I'd say is that we've got a dotted crotchet, so it's a dotted quarter note, and then that rises up to a quaver, or an eighth note. We've then got another eighth note, another crotchet, and another eighth note. Okay, so what I would do is I would just add it all up first of all. Okay, so we've got a dotted crotchet, which is 1.5, plus an eighth note, which is another half of the beat. So there, in the first figure, that D rising up to the E with the slur over the top, what we're seeing there is that we've got 2 beats. Okay, so in the next one, I'm going to say that there's a whole crotchet, sorry, a crotchet or a quarter note. You can see I'm getting tied up with my fractions here because I don't speak that version of it very well. We've got our crotchet and 2 quavers, so we've got a quarter note and 2 eighth notes, and again, that adds up to 2 beats. Now, what we're going to say is, in its most simplest form, that is a bar of. Look, do you want to shout in? Have you got an idea what that is? Don't let me put you on the spot. Just tell me to go away if you don't know.
No, go away.
Go away. Okay.
No, I'm thinking 4/4, but I'm not sure.
4/4. You are absolutely spot on. That's absolutely right. Okay. So we've got a bar of 2/4 at the very end there, a bar of 4/4 just before it, and then we've got this bar that looks horrendous just in front of it, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
It looks horrendous because we've got triplets, we've got quarter notes, we've got eighth notes, we've got sharps, we've got naturals, we've got dynamics, we've got a tempo direction, all these kind of things. But this is not a nice bar to look at. But we just follow exactly the same process and break it down. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the most kind of simple part of it, and that is the probably the 2 quavers, the 2 eighth notes that are sitting right next to each other. The fact that we've got 2 eighth notes sitting right next to each other, and we've got another eighth note just in front of it that isn't beamed to it, should tell us immediately that these beats are being broken into 2s and not 3s, and therefore we're probably going to be looking for something that divides the beats into 2s. Okay, so we have this one, which is a beat. This let me just try and highlight, show it you there, the bit where the cursor is just now, which is a beat. And just after that, we've got a semi-quaver triplet. Now, a semi-quaver triplet is 3 things squashed into the space that 2 should occupy. Well, 3 semiquavers squashed into the space that 2 semiquavers should occupy means that that little figure takes up the space of 2 semiquavers. 2 semiquavers is a quaver, if we add it up, and then that is in a figure with another quaver. So these 3 semiquavers under the triplet bracket here actually add up to the space of a quaver, and we've got another quaver beamed into it. So that's another figure that contains 2 quavers. So that's a beat. So this part where the cursor is at the moment is a beat, this figure here. And you can see actually it kind of makes sense because it's been broken up that way. This is a beat. So that's 1 beat, 2 beats. Actually, if we look here, we've got a crotchet, which is another beat, so that's 3 beats, 4 beats. So all we've actually got left to deal with are these kind of quavers that are floating about on their own. How many do we have? Well, we've got 4 quavers. 4 quavers adds up to the space of 2 crotchets. So what we can say actually is we've got 1 beat at the end here, 1 beat just before it, so that's 2 beats, 2 crotchet beats, which makes 3, 4, and then 4 quavers, which then we add together gives us another 2 beats. So we've got 4 beats that we've worked out, plus an extra 2 beats that are in there. Look, 4 beats plus 2 beats is
6.
6 beats. So what are we going to call this time signature?
No idea. 6,
okay,
8,
well,
6. Yeah.
Well, we're not going to call it 6/8 because all the beats that we're counting here are crotchets or quarter note beats. So if we're counting up crotchets and quarter note beats, it's going to be 6/4 exactly. And just to kind of translate that backwards, what we get is 6 crotchet beats in the bar, and it's been divided up in this kind of initially horrendous way when we look at it. But actually, it forms quite a nice little bar of 6/4. So for everyone watching, what we've got is a bar of 6/4, a bar of 4/4, then a bar of 2/4. Now, I think we took a wee while over that, but I think it was probably useful. So what I want to do is say, actually, here we can see Richard's here. Hello, everybody. What we can do is say that. That's maybe a useful way to get into it, and what I could do is post in a thread on the forums another couple of examples of these that you can maybe use to kind of look through. Hopefully that would be useful. I'm just noticing on the event page that Elizabeth Bourne has put 3-2 question mark. Yeah. That's interesting. That kind of adds up to the same amount of beats, doesn't it? But actually the beats, as we were seeing, were grouped in quarter notes. They were crotchets, and they were kind of the 2 quavers together beamed in that way was our giveaway there. If you're looking at it and thinking it's 3/2, your maths is absolutely right. Your description slightly less so because of the way it's beamed and the way it's actually presented on the page. But I would say that that's something to go and have a look at. Richard,
it would also be too slow to play very easily. You know, the way that sounded was
too slow to count.
Yeah, too slow to count. If you were trying to count in 3/2, if you say we're doing it with a conductor, you'd be going like he would be going like this really slowly. Whereas in 6/4, we'd be going 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or whatever. You know, like exactly. That. So it would be too slow.
Okay, so hopefully that's a kind of useful, practical way to go about talking about it. What I will do is post that, but I just wondered if there are any other questions, because I think we've taken a while to go through this stuff, but I hope it's useful to just go through it in a more kind of at a slower pace and a way that might be kind of useful for people to kind of look at and engage with. I'm just going on to the forum here. Any other questions? Luke, can I ask you, since you're our live participant, in terms of going through the metric side of things and the rhythm, meter, duration, beats, all this kind of thing, is that a kind of useful way to go over the material from week 3? Is there any glaring omissions, or?
Yeah, I think it's a subject that's going to take all of us a lot of practice. So any examples, any more examples you can give us is probably going to be nothing but help. I just got my eye on the test and going through that, trying to see if I can think of a question to ask you from the test, but I don't want to give anything away either.
Exactly, we're really not going to do that. But what I am seeing, I don't know if you're able to see the event page as well, actually, but I'm seeing people like Paul, Jonathan, Nilufar. I really do apologise if that's not how you pronounce your name, but I'm seeing that these people are saying, extra exercise is useful. Jonathan, definitely useful, thanks. Paul, very useful. So if that is useful, I think now's a good time to call it a day, because I've actually got to disappear. Richard wants to add something.
So much of this music has this sort of arithmetic aspect to it, and it's really great to just stop, write things down on paper, count, and sort it out. There's the same with the harmony stuff too. I mean, professional musicians do this. Hard pieces of music and weird time signatures. You sit down, okay, hold on a minute, 1, 2, 3,
Absolutely.
plus half of 1, 102. This is not something that you're meant to just magically do immediately.
Yeah, and if you look at the score,
sit around and spend ages counting up stuff exactly like Zach's been doing. So
absolutely.
don't
And if you look at the scores, you go into a kind of big band or an orchestra, and there's horrible pieces. Underneath every one of those bars, you'll see pencil marks.
Yes.
1 and 2 circles around the beat being grouped together.
Yeah.
This is fine, and
So
I mean,
orchestral musicians have already done this. They've been writing it out because they've got to play it right then, and they're like, oh boy, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, whatever it is.
And notice Richard and I are saying orchestral musicians.
And
I think it's probably fair that Richard and I would say that we're not. You know, we're more improvisers and jazzers and pop guys, I suppose, and that's fine. You know, there's nothing wrong with whatever area that you're working in, really sitting down and thinking about the rhythm side of things. Okay, time has run away with us. The reason Richard's here is that we wanted to do some extra work on transposing instruments and to talk about how instruments transpose. I think because time's run away with us, what we're going to do is we're going to make an extra video about transposing instruments and talk about that. It's not related to the rhythm stuff that we were doing today, but I think it would be useful for people because it has come up in the forums. So, what we're going to do is we're going to come back to that. We're going to put up some more assignments, we're going to put up some more tests, we're going to put up some more practice and point in the direction of other things. And hopefully that will be useful for you. So I just want to say thank you very much to everyone who's taken the time. I'm sure a lot of you have come from different time zones. Paul has specifically said it's 5 a.m. where he is, and coffee is fueling him. People have stayed up to listen to us. So I just really hope that it's been
worth it.
useful for you and that it was worth it. But by all means, you know, the forums are there, Facebook's there, Twitter's there. Please get in touch. You'll hopefully have seen that we've been quite active there, and we're trying to help out as much as possible. And we will hope to see you soon. I just want to say thank you to Luke sitting down here in the corner of the screen again.
Thank you, Zach.
For taking the time to be our guinea pig. That's much appreciated. And you're in Australia, so it's getting late for you at night, I think, as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's 8 o'clock. It's not too bad.
Okay,
Yeah,
well, Richard and I are thinking about a mid-morning coffee now, okay?
yeah. Well, it's not 5, that's for sure.
Excellent. Yeah, that's true. That makes life easier.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you all very much. This will be posted on YouTube. I will make the link available. But thank you again, and please do get in touch with us if we can be of any use. I'm going to stop the broadcast now, but thank you very much.